The mother-in-law was obviously a mute woman, but the woman could hear her thoughts. She not only ignored everything but also did the exact opposite of what her mother-in-law said, because she was a reincarnator. In her previous life, she believed that being able to hear her mother-in-law's thoughts would allow her to care for her better. She had thoughtfully changed her bedding for her mother-in-law, and she had helped her search for a photo album from many years ago. To her shock, the freshly changed bedding concealed a silver needle. The old photo album was also full of evidence of how she had harmed her. Because of these two incidents, the woman was pushed over by onlookers and met a brutal death on the spot. The woman could not understand why her mother-in-law would slander her in this way. When she opened her eyes again, she was reborn on the day her mother-in-law was admitted to the hospital. This time she vowed she would never fall for her mother-in-law's tricks again. Seeing her husband making a call nearby, the woman secretly put the phone charger into her bag. Her husband became frantic because his phone had no battery. Unable to find the charger, he tried to drag the woman back home. At that moment, the mother-in-law blocked their path, and she wrote on a piece of paper that she wanted the bedding changed. Seeing this, the woman was to pin the responsibility of changing the bedding on her husband. She then leisurely started changing the bedding herself. Meanwhile, her husband grew anxious because his phone was dead. He shoved the woman aside and changed the bedding himself. Afterwards, the mother-in-law returned from the examination room and saw the bedding had been changed. She lay down and deliberately let out a painful cry, and pulled out a pre-hidden silver needle. When she tries to smear the woman for hurting her, the woman deliberately questioned her husband about why he had hidden a needle inside the bedding. The husband, hearing this, was baffled by what had occurred. At that moment, the onlookers began to condemn the man as unfilial. The man turned to ask his mother to explain. Unexpectedly, he pushed too hard and knocked his mother's head against the railing. The crowd became even more convinced that the man had harmed his mother. They rushed forward and took the man to the police station. Seeing this, the mother-in-law immediately panicked. She had not expected that framing her daughter-in-law would backfire and endanger her own son. To save her son, she hoped the woman would go to the police station to testify on his behalf, to prove that her son had not intentionally hurt her. After taking the notebook, the woman immediately tore the page to shreds, saying that if he was innocent, the police would release him once the investigation was complete. Upon hearing this, the mother-in-law fainted on the spot. The doctor, seeing this, had no choice but to perform the surgery ahead of schedule. Just like in her previous life, the mother-in-law told the woman to go home and fetch the old photo album, trying to set the woman up again. The woman sneered disdainfully. Just like in her previous life, the old album was filled with photos of the woman harming her mother-in-law. When she returned to the hospital, the mother-in-law had already been wheeled into the operating room. Suddenly, a nurse snatched the album away. In front of everyone, the nurse accused the woman of harming her mother-in-law. In reality, the album has been replaced by the woman with ordinary family photos. The woman foiled her mother-in-law's plan to frame her. At that moment, the nurse from the operating room emerged. She urged the woman to quickly bring the album inside. The mother-in-law was astonished to see her walk in unharmed. Before the mother-in-law could speak, the doctor announced the start of the surgery and told the woman to leave. Hearing this, the woman placed the album in her mother-in-law's hand. Then she sat down outside the operating room to wait. She still could not understand why her mother-in-law wanted to frame her. At first, her mother-in-law had treated her with great kindness, but ever since she was hospitalized, she had seemed like a different person.